Okay, now up to a minion between those on screen and those in the congregation. Always a good thing. I was, some of you may have already heard this, but one of the things that I learned in the Vatican meetings where I was, for hours on end with a mask on, is first of all that when I have a mask on the beard for a long time, that it starts to curl up like that, and secondly, that bothered me, that I was more vain about the appearance of the beard than I would have expected. So anyway, so I would wash it each night so it would straighten out again, because you could do it just was. So yeah, I know, that's what I needed. Okay, well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Let me pull up our service online. Okay, so let's start with Temple Hesed song. Hesed u'mishpat ashir alecha Adonai zamira. Hesed u'mishpat ashir alecha Adonai zamira. Of love and justice I will sing to you, Adonai, I'll sing praises. Of love and justice I will sing. To you, Adonai, I'll sing praises. And we continue on page 10 with our opening song of Shabbat Hamalka. It's almost my mom's yahrzeit, and this was one of her favorite Shabbat songs. So in her memory, it's from a poem by Nachman Bialik, and it's been sent to music a few times, but this is the most common setting. Bowie, Bowie, Hamaka, Bowie, Bowie, Hakana, Shalom Lechem, Malachi HaShalom. The sun on the treetops no longer is seen. Come gather blessed, and with her angels of peace and of rest. Draw near, and here abide. Draw near, O Sabbath bride. Peace also to you, you angels of peace. Mary Beth is having some issues getting in. Let me just see if I can figure out what's going on. We shall see. The miracles of modern technology. I know they're having a problem. I don't know what it is. Everyone else is getting it. So, Susie, would you be okay to light candles? Come forward. We'll turn to page 2 and 3 for the lighting of the Shabbat candles. 2 and 3. Okay, try that.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this service in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
And we turn now to page 20 for Lecha Dodi. We'll sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene pene Shabbat nekabela, la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene pene Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor v'diborecha, Hishmianu el hamichad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, V'shemo tiferet v'leti la 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 chadodi, Likrat kala, V'nei b'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha chadodi, Likrat kala, V'nei b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Krat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nisucha, sof ma'aseh b'maksheva techila la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, v'nei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, v'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, ki ba'e kumeori, uri shidaberi, kevod Adonai elai, la 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 chadodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Verse 9. Boi v'shalom ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola, toch emunei am sigula. Boi chala, la 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 chadodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela, la 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 chadodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Echa lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Pnei Shabbat Mekabela. And now we continue on page 26 with the Hetzi Kaddish as we close off the welcoming of Shabbat and enter into the beginning of the evening service. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabban v'alma divra chirute v'yamnich malchute b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala uvizman karib bimeru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach Olam ol me'al maya Yitbarach v'yishtabach Yitbar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal Shemei Kedusha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran bi'alma bimeru. Amen. And now we turn to the Baruch, the call to worship on page 28. Please rise. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruchu et Adonai. Amevorach, Amevorach, Amevorach. Baruch Adonai. Amevorach, Amevorach, Me'olam va'ed. We continue on page 31 at the bottom of the page. Let's read together. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Page 33, we read responsively. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. Together, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Return to the Shema on page 34. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please be seated. We continue with the Ve'ahavta on page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadivarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam Nivanecha, Vidibarta Baham, Vishiftecha, Bevetecha, Uvlechtecha, Vaderech, Ushochbecha, Uvkumecha, Ukshartam Laod, Al Yadecha, Vihayula Totafot, Bein Enecha, Utavtam, Amazuzot Beitecha, Uvisharecha. Leman tizkaru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. We read responsibly on page 39, the introduction to the Micha Mocha. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God together, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt, we were delivered. At Sinai, we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again, we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Micha mocha ba'alim Adonai, Micha mocha ne'edar ba'kodesh. Micha mocha ba'alim Adonai, Micha mocha ne'edar ba'kodesh. No ra tehilot. Osefrele malchutecha ra'uvanecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe Miriam ze'elianu li'ameru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Micha mocha ba'alim Adonai, Micha mocha ne'edar ba'kodesh. Micha mocha ba'alim Adonai, Micha mocha ne'edar ba'kodesh. No ra tehilot. Osef eleven ne'emar kivada Adonai et Yaakov uge'elo miyad chazak mimenu. Baruch atah Adonai God Yisrael. Micha mocha ba'alim Adonai, Micha mocha ne'edar ba'kodesh. Micha mocha ba'alim Adonai, Micha mocha ne'edar ba'kodesh. No. We continue on page 42, reading together. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. You, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Sing V'Shamru on page 44. V'Shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, Lasot et HaShabbat לדורותם ברית עולם, ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ברית עולם. We now turn to the tefillah section of our service, as we were discussing before we got officially started tonight. The name of our prayer book is Mishkan Tefillah, the dwelling place or the house of prayer, which is not a space, but an activity. And tefillah, though it means prayer in general, also refers specifically to this part of the service. It's an interesting word for prayer because the word polel, the root of it, means to judge. So tefillah could be translated as judging yourself or examining yourself. A very different idea about prayer. We start on page 46 with the kavanah, the intention that leads us into prayer. Please rise. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer chasadim tovim vekonei hakol v'zocher chastei avot b'imahot umevi gula livnei b'neihem leman shemo b'ahava melech ozer u'moshia u'makeh Baruch atah Adonai Magen Abraham Yezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav LeHoshia Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Berofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishene Afar Michamo Chabar Gevurot Umido Melach Melech Memit Umechaye Umatzmiach Yeshua B'ne'eman atah lachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol. Continue on page 52. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh kadoshim b'chol yom yalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Please be seated. And we turn back to page 44 for the singing of Yismechu. Yismechu b'malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Korei Oneg Shabbat Yismechu b'malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Korei Oneg Shabbat Mikadashei, Mikadashei Shavi Shabbat Kulam Yisba'u Yithangu Metu B'chashabat Yismechu B'malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Korei Oneg Shabbat Yismechu B'malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Korei Oneg Shabbat Hashmi Ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat Chemdad Yamim Oto Karata Shabbat Yismechu B'malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Korei Oneg Shabbat Yismechu B'malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Korei Oneg Shabbat Zecher L'maseh Bereshit Shabbat Zecher L'maseh Bereshit Shabbat Yismechu B'malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Korei Oneg Shabbat Yismechu B'malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat Korei Oneg Shabbat. Yeah, there's some oneg there, some joy. And the song has 24 words in it, and tradition ascribes the meaning behind that to be that we're supposed to be joyous all 24 hours of Shabbat, which includes all the time that you're sleeping. So you have to have joyous sleep. That was great. It's one of the things you can't quite do when you're just there by yourself on Zoom. Hear things like that. Let's continue reading together on page 57. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve and reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. Page 58. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha lacha na'eh lehodot. Page 60, we sing Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Bechol עת וחושע בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. After that very peaceful melody, we take a moment to breathe in the peace of Shabbat, to look back with peace upon a week that may have had a few moments of peace and some moments that were far from peace. The step back, reconsider it. As we pause to think of our blessings and to think forward to the week to come and how we might bring a bit of the peace of Shabbat into that new week. We pray silently. Page 62. Yehu l'ratzon, and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, be acceptable to you. Adonai, my rock and Redeemer. Adonai, my rock and Redeemer. Amen. So this week we have one of those Torah portions that has lots and lots and lots of things happening in it. And I want to spend a little time looking at a part that is not so often noticed. In the song that we welcome Shabbat with, Shabbat HaMalkah, talked about Hashemesh Hal Nistalka Nistalka, that the sun has set behind the treetops, and that's in plural. Ilanot, one of the words for trees in Hebrew in the plural, and this Torah portion opens at Ilonei Mamre, the trees of Mamre, where Sarah and Abraham have set up their tent. And it opens that God appeared to Abraham be Ilonei Mamre. And that word be is often translated as by the trees of Mamre. But be has lots of different meanings. By is not one of the usual ones. In, on, with, it's associative. So there are many more prepositions in English than in Hebrew. In Hebrew, we generally have be that's associative, li that's directional, al that is alongside of. So if you wanted God to appear by the trees of Mamre, you would have used al, not God appeared on or next to, but biz is among, probably here. And so what does that exactly mean for a God who doesn't have an appearance to appear and to do so in these trees? So often we hear the phrase, seeing is believing. And it's used to indicate a certain cynicism about the world, that I don't believe it unless I can see it with my own two eyes. But the Torah actually points us in kind of the opposite direction, which is that in order to see some things, you have to believe. That there are many important things to see in the world that if you don't approach with the right belief, that you will miss altogether. This is not just in Torah, of course. There's a country song called "I Saw God Today." That it's a man who's pacing nervously. We later find out he's pacing outside the hospital where his wife is about to give birth. Why he's pacing nervously outside and not alongside her in the hospital, the song doesn't get into. I don't know. But while he's pacing outside, he sees a little flower growing out of a crack in the sidewalk. And that's where he sees God. And it's a great point, because you could, first of all, not see it at all, or you could see it and say, oh, a flower, or you could see it and say, that's a weed. But with that appreciation of waiting for birth to come, he is seeing this as a sign of the wonders of life. And I would like to think that the reason that God was apparent to Abraham in the trees of Mamre was because Abraham was looking for God there. Seeing God in the blessing of having trees in a place where trees are not necessarily so common, the shade, the coolness, the fruits and the things that could be harvested from the trees. And that word appear actually happens of this Torah portion after God appears in the trees. Three people appear that Abraham welcomes in. Abraham is kind of the paradigm of hospitality in our tradition. The Midrash claims that Abraham's tent had a door on all four sides. So no matter what direction you came from, you were greeted by an open door. Now, this is not necessarily the most practical way to have a tent, But it's an interesting picture. And these are clearly strangers, and he welcomes them and sees in their appearance, again, something divine. Now, it turns out they seem to be divine messengers, but before they make that apparent in any particular sort of way, he sees in them a reflection of the divine, which we're told all people in our tradition have. Again, if God doesn't have an appearance, how can we be in the image of God? How can we appear to be like God? It's more a verb than a noun in this case. Not that we have the appearance of, but that we can do things that are godly. And Abraham was seeing that in whoever walked by, their potential godliness. Interestingly, in our tradition, the word malach, which is often translated as angel, means really messenger. And in the Greek, angelos means messenger, can be a divine messenger or a human messenger. That's an accurate translation of malach. The English word angel, not so much, because it makes us just think of some divine being. But all of us can be messengers of the divine when we act in that godly fashion, when we are mensches, when we do things in a way that bring peace, joy, a sense of the divine presence to others, then we're being divine messengers. And again, you could be as divine a messenger as you want, and if somebody's in a bad mood, they may not see it. Like, you have to be in the place where you can see that. And so we see that part of what Abraham's doing is seeing that in others. All of these appearances of God are a prelude to God thinking to God's self, I'm about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Maybe I should tell Abraham. And again, Torah doesn't explain why suddenly God is musing. Nothing else up until this point, midway through Genesis, has God ever stopped to consider something before doing it. God creates, God destroys, God makes the storm end. There's no sense of God sort of pausing and thinking. But all of a sudden at this point, he went with Abraham. Why? It seems from the story itself that the most likely reason is not anything that God needs, but to see where Abraham is. And where Abraham is, Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham says, well, wait a minute. You're the judge of the whole world. Would it be just if there were 50 righteous people in the city, to destroy the city, the wicked, along with those 50 righteous? And God says, no, you're right. If there are 50 righteous people, I won't do it. And then Abraham says, well, what if there were 5 short? There were only 45 righteous people. Would you destroy the whole town because of the lack of 5 people? And God says, no. And this continues down through 40, 30, 20, 10. And there Abraham stops. In fact, it turns out there's not even 10. There's Lot and his family, who I wouldn't go so far as to say are righteous. They're not evil, but they're kind of medium to mediocre. But it's not enough. Sodom and Gomorrah gets destroyed. But why stop at 10? So back to that beginning part of the story and the word from our song. It's not the tree of Mamre. It's not this. And we have other places where people are camped out under a tree it's a signpost, but it's trees. And there's something different between a tree and trees. Yes, it actually changes the atmosphere. If you've ever been in a very hot, sunny day and then walk beneath into the woods, all of a sudden the air feels different because it actually is different. And trees are different when they're not alone. They communicate through the soil, through their roots, through chemical messengers, through mycorrhizae, symbiotic with the roots that helps the trees process their nutrients. When we went truffle hunting in Tuscany, the truffles are in symbiosis with the trees. They grow by some trees and not by others, and they'll never grow in a place where there's one tree. They only grow where there are trees in the plural. And that's not so different from people. I mean, we can do righteous things by ourselves, but it's different when we're in a community. It's easier when you have support, when you feel like you're not alone, to be more giving, to stand up for yourself more. If everyone around you is being mean and nasty and selfish, it's much harder to be open-hearted and trusting. But if you're in a community, it's a little different. A little forest for you to actually be fully human to the best of your abilities and to approach that kind of godly presence. So maybe that's a hint at the beginning that ability of Abraham to see the good and the blessing in the trees was also a reminder that for us to have that kind of blessing, that we need each other, and that we have each other to reinforce those positives, that we can do something different. And that happens on all sorts of levels, on the smallest level of a nuclear family, an extended family and community, in a Jewish community, in a world community where we hope that societies don't just look after themselves, but interact with each other in a way that is befitting of blessing and the forest of humanity. A couple of announcements before we continue with the Tisha B'Av and think about the healing of others in our forest. We're in the midst in October of a theme of creation and creativity in our chanting circle. We're meeting only online for the next two circles for roughly a half hour at 11:30 this Saturday and next Saturday. And for our chants this month, we're looking at passages from Genesis 1 and 2 about creation and the unfolding, and we're using great creative minds to help us explore themes of creativity. We'll be looking at some melodies by Borodin and Beethoven and Mozart this week to help us think about what does it mean to pause, to step back from creating, and what does it mean to find yourself at home. So folks are welcome to join us for that. And our next special Shabbat is not until the third week in November, when once again the Scranton Area Ministerium will celebrate community-wide Thanksgiving here with us at Temple Hesed. Any questions, comments, announcements? Okay, so then let's turn back in our prayer books to page 253 for the Tisha B'Av. We think of these members of our temple family in need of healing: Michael Cornfield, Shannon Flood, Lynn Fragan, Kenny Gantz, Larry Golden, Alan Heilbrunn, Phil Noble, Maggie LaRusso, Rich Mates, Chelsea Minkoff, Harriet Noble, Charlene Ostro, Seal Radzewski, surgery. So given how many Catholics blessed me on the way to the Vatican, I think we could add our blessings to the Pope as he recovers. If you have names you'd like to add to that list, if you're online, just unmute yourself and speak up after I turn across the congregation for anybody. Susan? I don't know her name, but it's my coworker's mother. And anyone online?
Michelle Sitko.
Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av Avotenu Nikor HaBracha La'imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberon imotenu Mekor habracha avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We now turn to the Elenu as we enter into our concluding prayers on page 282, 283. Please rise.
Let us adore
The ever-living God and render praise unto you who spread out the heavens and established the earth, whose glory is revealed in the heavens above, and whose greatness is manifest throughout the world. You are our God, there is none else. Please be seated. And let's turn to page 285 and read together. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech hakol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad. Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad. Ushemo echad, Ushemo echad, Ushemo echad. As our service draws to a close, we recall all those whose yahrzeit is marked at this season: Irene Goodman, Jerome M. Friedman, Oscar Kleeman, Esther Gooder, Manny Gelb, Lois Walensky, Harry Ben Chaim, Attorney Joseph Needle, Alfred Rice Jr., Samuel Ginsburg, Scott J. Tepper. Zichronam Livracha. May their memory, the memory of all those we have loved and lost, now and forever, be a blessing. We ask those who are observing Yahrzeit, if they so wish, to rise first. And then as a congregation, we rise in memory of these names and in memory of all those who no longer have anyone left to say these words for them. We turn to page 294 to recite Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chai echon u'vyom echon, v'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach elam almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shemei d'kudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all the world, to which we say, Amen. Our closing song is Ein Keloheinu, which you can find on page 322. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadoneinu, Michemalkeinu, Mikemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adoneinu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Wave at the people at the screen. Say hi. Shabbat Shalom. Good job. We